folks, we have a very special guest today, a visual artist, Jessica Mata, right?
Yes.
Um, a Boricua Panamanian artist, Jessica Mata, owner of Perfectly Dismantled, is changing the course of art through her innovative methods of incorporating polymers, clays, and utilizing her voice to speak on topics surrounding mental health, which is very important. Utilizing the process of self-discovery and her mental health advocacy as her subject while creating wearable art with intention to cope with her healing journey. That's deep. That's deep.
The way to start it off, right? But
Yeah,
thank you so much for having me. I'm so honored to have space here, and you guys are holding space for us artists. So thank you for having me.
absolutely, absolutely. Communication is important within our art community, you know. There's so many gatekeepers out there telling us what we can do or what we shouldn't do.
Right.
But it all starts with community, you know.
Absolutely. Yes.
So tell us a little bit about yourself, a little bit of your background and what got you started into making art.
Sure. Yeah. So, firstly, obviously, my name is Jessica Mata. I'm 29 and my pronouns are she, her, they, them. I identify as non binary. And as you heard previously, I'm a proud Boricua Panamanian.
Hmm.
Uh, yeah. So, I've been a painter for over 10 years, which was kind of like the driven vehicle for my current brand, which is Perfectly Dismantled, where we create pretty much intentionally handmade wearable art while utilizing transparency and well, within myself, living with depression and anxiety to kind of bring that awareness to mental health and advocate for those navigating life who are also living with a mental illness, but also living in a society and a system that tells you that you can't feel. I believe we all deserve a path of healing and starting that journey, whatever that may look like for you. But hopefully, sharing the way that I know how to cope, which is art and making things with my hands, and just that is just the best way I know how to heal. I can help somebody else with, whether it's 10 people, 5 people, one person. That is my goal. That is my mission. I've done my job if if that was complete. So yeah, that's
Mm.
a little bit about myself.
So how did you correlate mental health in art? You know, is creating art like therapy for you?
Yeah, pretty much. That's pretty much how it started off. I was kind of going through a really tough time starting in my teen years, and I was also in a pretty toxic relationship,
Mm,
which surfaced a lot of different feelings that I couldn't understand. I didn't have resources. I didn't have somebody to talk to. I didn't that mental health was not a conversation in our household. So I
mhm,
had to
mhm,
navigate and figure out, okay, what is this? How do I cope? And I was introduced to art when I went to school. I went to Kingsborough Community College in Brooklyn, and I was taking up photography and art
mhm,
history. And of course, they introduced like an art class. And then I took an oil painting class, and that was kind of it for me. Like I
mhm,
took that class and I dropped out. I pretty much dropped out. And, in the midst of all this, I was feeling all these things. I felt really sad. And I was just like, you know what? For the first time in my life, I actually feel amazing making art and
mm,
painting and doing this. This is new for me. And I just stuck with it. And I knew that that's how I wanted to live my life for the rest of my years. I wanted to make art because I knew that it was helping me heal in that sense and heal parts of me that I didn't know how to do otherwise.
mm. I can definitely relate, you know, like you said, in Black and brown communities, we don't really have conversations about mental health, you
Yep.
know, and just a little background on me being in a single parent home, I never felt like I really belonged, you know, which put me into a little depression. And
Right.
once I found my path, my art, picking up a camera and taking portraits and street
Mm,
photography, um, it was like a release. Like
right,
it helped me see it helped me see things from different perspectives.
right.
You ever look at a person walking down the street, you never met the person, but you try to like think about and contemplate the personality type, or how their day is going, like you
Yes,
try to
yes. I
create
feel
these,
that so much. Yeah.
right, these different stories and scenarios. So once I started, going out in the street and taking street photography, I would walk up to people, may I take a picture, just have a conversation with them, talk
Mm,
about their day and their ups and their downs, and I would do the same, talk about my day, and just it,
right,
it's, it was like therapy for me. Instead of like going into a therapist, I would just go to like different random people,
right.
it seems kind of
Just
creepy,
go
but
meet
yeah,
somebody.
just go meet somebody and talk to them,
Yeah,
and
you just never know who you're gonna meet. Like you just
right,
never know. For
and
sure. I feel that.
yeah, it's important, it's important to just communicate when your mental health is, not where it's supposed to be.
Exactly. And that's probably that's the most important part is like communicating that. We kind of live in a world right now where people don't know how to respond to mental health. They
Mhm.
think it's like this weakness, like, what is this? All right, you're crazy using the C word. And it's like, no, I think we need to educate ourselves on how to encounter someone who is dealing with, who is having a mental breakdown or going through
Mhm.
some sort of crisis, like never allowing someone to invalidate how you feel or what your trauma is. Like communicating those things are so important. Talking about our feelings is important, which is why, that's kind of where Perfectly Dismantled was born from, because I had this really crazy experience where, yeah, I was probably like 18 or something like that. And I had, I was in college and I was in a really toxic relationship, as I said before. And I remember posting very vividly, I posted something on Facebook and it was
Mhm.
like kind of dark, like, wow, I'm feeling like this and I don't know how to feel, blah, 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 just pouring out my feelings. And I was like, okay, this is social media. Let me just like vent a little bit.
Mhm.
And the response I got was just like, girl, why are you doing this? Like, don't put your feelings like, out there like as if it was a weakness. And I'm like, what is this? I feel like I'm being attacked. Like now I want to go into a hole. Like, and from there I was just like, no, I'm gonna continue painting. I'm gonna continue doing what I'm doing. I need whatever healing looks like for you. That's just what it looks like for you. Don't
Mhm.
ever let anyone tell you that that's not valid. Your feelings are not valid because they very much are so valid.
Absolutely. I think a lot of our peers and maybe our parents don't have experience with like speaking outwardly about their feelings, or
Right.
even going to therapy. If they don't know, they won't teach us, how to do it. And when I told my mother about my depression, she said, go to church. You know what I mean? Ask God to pray.
Go to church.
Yeah, pray to God, and you know, even though that does help some people, sometimes it
Right.
doesn't help everybody. You know what I mean?
For sure. Yeah.
And yeah, I think I'm glad that it's like an insurgence of mental health is important. And I really appreciate artists like you bringing that to the forefront and just helping people out there.
Yeah, I appreciate it for sure. Like that's just the other day, like not even like these past couple of months, I experienced what I like to call a spiritual awakening.
Hmm.
Um, there's just like a lot of different things that were pulling me in. I'm like, what are you trying to tell me right now? Like, what do I need to do right now? And I just, no matter what I do, I always end up back into this path of like speaking my truth, speaking my feelings, and like
Hmm.
understanding that other people can also relate to how I feel. I'm not a therapist or anything like that. I'm just a person in this experience with you. And I experience the same things like you. I'm human. I get depressed. I have anxiety. I deal with those things. And the best way I know how to do that is through art. And, I want to build that community so that I can bring like-minded humans to our, to the same circle, and talk about our feelings and figure out how can we heal together.
Mm. You mentioned that you were from Brooklyn, right? And
Yeah.
I'm from DC, but I've been
Okay.
to New York quite a few times, and I noticed that the environment and the community, it cultivates a lot of creative people. Um,
Mm.
did growing up in New York have a big impact on, or did it affect your art in any way?
For sure. Brooklyn is my heart. Like when I'm from, I was born in Puerto Rico. My
Hmm.
dad's Panamanian, but I was raised in Brooklyn. And Brooklyn is where I got most of my inspiration to create. It was everywhere you went, whether it was on the train or like you said, like you encounter all sorts of people and you imagine these things, and, just everything about New York definitely affected me, like as an artist. I wanted to go hard.
Hmm.
New York is about the hustle and bustle, so it made you want to create more, because there's so many people in New York right now who are artists. There's so many artists in New York that are, that their art is born there. um but yeah, definitely Brooklyn is my heart. That is where I get the majority of my inspiration, but also my experiences there growing up in the projects most of my life, and being raised by a single mother, 3 kids. Like that is what molded me to really go as hard, because I seen the possibilities, but I also seen the risk and the things that had to take place for us to have the lives that we have now. So
Hmm.
I never take that for granted. I came from the P's very much proud, but I also use that as like fuel and inspiration to never go back to those places, but also never forgetting like where I came from. Like that was my biggest inspiration. Not being able, there were days where we didn't have money.
Yeah.
We didn't have it all. I didn't grow up in that sort of household. We had what we had. It was simple, but we were happy regardless. My mom always made sure we were good and happy.
Hmm. Hmm. I can relate. My mother was the same way. I didn't always get what I wanted, but
Right.
you can't make diamonds without pressure. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
And growing up in the projects of the hood is that pressure, that creates art.
That's facts.
That created Marvin Gaye. You know what I mean? Like that created James Brown. Like growing
Yes.
up in
Yes.
adversity,
Yep.
Basquiat, that
For
all of that
sure. Yep.
creates great artists and influencers. Like artists from Black and brown communities influence the whole world. That's just my perspective. You know what I mean?
Facts.
Whether it's lingo, um, the way we dance, the way we present ourselves to the
Yep.
world, it's always copied. You know what I mean? Like
Yep.
the kids use TikTok nowadays. Like all the black dancers creating these,
TikTok.
yeah, creating these
Yeah.
dances, right? And everyone just copies it. Like without
Yeah.
the projects or without places of adversity like that, the world wouldn't really have a
Exactly.
soul or a heartbeat.
Yeah, for sure. I definitely feel that 100. It's like how I said earlier today too. I was just like, it was actually one of my captions, like some of the strongest people I know or like heard of, read stories of, have been through some of like the darkest times.
Hmm. Hmm.
And like you said, you can't create a diamond without pressure. And like those are facts.
um Tell me about your favorite medium. I know you work with a lot of polymers and clays. Like is that all you're focusing on now, or do you still paint?
I still paint. I mean, I've been painting for over 10 years, but painting for me now is different. It's like sacred, Now when I paint, it's just like something that I do, as one of my therapy forms, but it's just a very intimate moment where I'm just kind of going with the flow and painting.
Hmm.
But right now, the majority of the medium that I use is polymer clay. That's what I make to that's what I use to make the majority of my earrings, along with, other things like pearls,
Mm,
uh, glitter, whatever I could get my hands on pretty much to create a piece that I'm kind of feeling and flowing with in the moment. But
okay.
definitely oil paint. If you had to ask me like what is my medium, it's oil paint. That is my everything.
I've, just like looked at your stuff on social media, and a lot
Mhm.
of it kind of reminds me of like sculpture, you know,
Sculpture.
like um I don't know if this is like your Latin background, but it kind of gives me like, how do I want to say it, like Aztec what it the Aztecs used to like a lot of their information and history is like sketched in like on the wall or whatever, or
Yeah.
it kind of gave me a little bit of that, but it's still
Yeah.
kind of like modern and current.
Yeah, for sure. Are you referring to, I'm assuming it's my artwork.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, I mean, I don't I'm the majority of my paint work is again, it's kind of like what I'm flowing and feeling in the moment.
Mm,
I like to create a lot of uh nude distorted portraits. That's like my favorite, or like certain parts of the anatomy, like the feet or the hands, like
mm,
certain things that I'm kind of drawn to. But yeah, there are moments where I really dig into, I guess, my deep ancestor side to like bring out the, my root.
yeah.
Um, and I don't know, I just kind of go with the flow. Normally when I paint, I go in with this idea in my head, and then it's like, oh no, we're gonna go this way. And then
Mm.
it turns into something else.
Okay, I could feel that. I was just mentioning because it reminds me. I see a lot of like bright colors, which reminds
Yeah.
me of like maybe Latin American jewelry, like a lot of light blues, or
Yeah.
just like pieces that they will wear on their necks and wrists and stuff like that.
Yeah, and some of those are actually inspiration. Like if I'm, for an example, if I'm looking at a book, because if I'm looking at a book that is about, an indigenous culture or something like
Mm,
that, something will absolutely stick out to me. Like, um, like the gold they used to wear around their arms, or like
mm,
certain accents. Like that was something that I like to add into my paintings for sure. Like it was my goal was just having a black background. That was my style, black background, and then you would have a super colorful like subject, and then it was
mm.
like these accents.
Yeah,
I
I could
miss I
feel that.
miss doing that.
Where do you find inspiration?
Inspiration. Um, Again, it would have to be, I really go based off like how I'm feeling in the moment. Um, I think about a lot of my inspiration honestly comes from like my grandmother.
Mm,
Like I think like a lot of time that I spent when I was younger was with my grandmother, and she introduced me to a lot of different things, whether it was music, the type of food, I kind of embody those into my artwork. But honestly, her and my mother are like my biggest inspiration. I don't have like a specific,
mm,
topic or a certain person that I look to for inspiration. I just kind of go with how I'm feeling and what inspires me and like what motivates me.
um, how do you navigate the art world? I know a lot of like local artists that I know, especially from a black and brown backgrounds. Um they don't really have that much access into some of these galleries because some of
Mm,
the, I guess, gatekeepers will see their work
yeah.
as like
Yeah.
primitive and too cultural. Like they
Yeah.
give us labels that are so absurd. Like how do you
For
navigate
sure.
through that?
Yeah. I mean, I'm gonna keep it 100. Like it was very difficult, with my artwork and figuring out what my style was. And once I had this like style, like this is what I like to paint, this is what I'm doing. It was very difficult to try to get into those galleries because
Hmm.
they weren't looking at me. They weren't looking at like the black and brown and indigenous community.
Hmm.
They had this specific type of artist in mind, and I didn't fit those art pieces that they were looking for. But it was very difficult. You know, a lot of the times I remember living in New York, curating my own solo shows
Hmm.
because, again, art curators weren't really looking at my kind of artwork. And we were actually, me and my partner were actually just talking about this the other day, like how she's been painting for over 10 years, you know, and it's so difficult to just get into these spaces with these, you know, big galleries because, again, they're not looking at us. But it was difficult. It was a challenge, honestly, as an artist, especially in New York, because everybody's kind of doing the same thing.
Hmm.
So most of the time we had to curate our own art shows, promote our own work to be seen in the art world. You know, you had to really stand out and be different to be seen. Otherwise, nothing was really happening for you. You know, it was hard to grasp like any art collector or anyone. You know, we had to do these little side shows, these featured shows to like have
Hmm.
people look at us. But yeah, it was pretty difficult even now. You know, again, it's everyone's doing the same thing. It's kind of a difficult scene to be seen there.
Mm. That's why I think community is important, you know.
For
Um,
sure.
Social media is a blessing and a curse, right? Um, Back in the early 2000s, if you look in a magazine or or if you're watching a certain television show, you'd rarely see like people with melanated skin in these magazines or television shows.
Right.
But the birth of social media gave us a certain power where we can control our own narratives, right?
Yes.
So instead of having that crab in the bucket mentality or each man for his own or each woman for his own or whatever,
Yeah.
if we when we come together as a community and create our own spaces, that's when, in my opinion, that's when our hard work is more fruitful. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Like
I definitely agree. Yeah.
we're not asking for acceptance. We're here. We're humans. We have real life experiences. Like
Yes.
accept us or don't, we're going to be here regardless.
Exactly. And that's why it's so important. Like, for an example, with what you're doing, holding space for artists like us,
Mm.
that's part of it, you know, community. And if you have a platform where you can do these sort of things, like why not utilize it? It doesn't matter how many followers you have. It only takes a few people to just be like, wow, like I really mess with your work.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
just building that pattern, that continuous pattern, like, all right, you show love, then let's do it for this person or whatever it may be, but definitely holding community, like that's so important.
Mm. How do you define success for an artist?
um how do I define success for artists? Honestly, being in the art world for so long, I feel like every day that you create a piece, that is my version of success.
Mm.
Creating a piece is not easy. You know, it could take days, it could take months. Um, but creating a piece and knowing that somebody can relate and connect with it and be like, wow, like I need this. That's my version of success because I did my part. I simply just, you know, express myself through the best way I know how to. And you understood it. You seen me.
Mm.
And for me, that's success in the art world. I don't, to me, you know, younger me would have probably said, like, you know, I'm trying to be in this big gallery over here on St. Mark Street or something like that. Like, to me, that's not success. You know, that changed over time the older I got. I was just like, you know, for me, it was a challenge just creating a piece. And if I can create a piece and do what I love and connect with a person, then I succeeded. I did my job.
Mm.
And that's what I define as being successful in the art community, because a lot of the time you see work now, a lot of that work is duplicated. It's not original,
Hmm.
you
Hmm.
know, and you see that too often these days, you know, people do it for the money. And for me, it was never about the money. It was just like, this is what I found in my time of darkness, and you see me, you know. So to me, that's success, is being able to connect with someone through my artwork.
I love that. I love that. Art is the oldest form of communication. Like
Hmm.
before we even had written language, people were
Yes.
um creating cave paintings, you know.
Yep.
Um what are you trying to communicate with your art?
What I'm trying to communicate is, you know, asking that question, thinking about it, I'm like, I remember always asking myself that while painting. You know,
Mm,
in the beginning, I was just like, what am I trying to communicate? But I didn't realize that, you know, I was simply communicating how I felt in those moments. I wanted
mm,
someone to hear, to see me, you know, as a person authentically as I am, like no judgment, no nothing. This is exactly how I feel right now, dark or light. Like this is who I am. And that was the best way that I was able to express myself.
mm,
Um, I suffer from things like social anxiety, talking to other people. Like those things are really, really challenging for a person like me. You know, it's not easy for me to just go into the world. You know, those are things that I'm facing. So when I put that into my paintings,
mm.
like that says everything pretty much for me. Um, but yeah, I just want, when people are looking at my work, I want them to understand like this is the raw me. This is who I am. I have mental health, but that doesn't make me weak. I'm just a
Mm.
human just like you. And, you know, I'm just trying to connect with others who feel the same way.
I think us as human beings, we intend to make life harder than what it really is. You know,
Hmm.
we intend to make it more complex when it's really cut and dry. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And we create these scenarios in our head way, like for example, like I'm very antisocial as well.
Hmm.
The reason I was antisocial is I would create scenarios in my head before they
Yeah.
happen. What if I go there and say this and this happens? And like I
Right.
created the whole scene in my head before I even said hello to anybody, right?
Yeah. I feel
And
that.
so in order for me to like check myself, I had to just be like, yo, you tripping. Just go say
Hmm.
hi. You know what I
Right.
mean? Like
Yeah.
that's all life is.
Yeah.
It's extremely simple, but we try to make it more complex
Yes.
because I don't know why. It's just maybe it's a human instinct. I don't know.
Right. Exactly. I feel that it's true. I definitely, you know, old version of myself. I feel like after my spiritual awakening these past few months, I'm training my brain to
Mm,
think that way. So going into situations like, listen, I am protected. I am I have the great divine all around me. Like I
mm-hmm,
don't need to be scared about anything. Um, but yeah, that definitely, the old me would have been like, you know what if this person says this? What if I say that? Like, nah,
mm-hmm,
I'm just gonna stay home. But
mm-hmm.
but yeah, like it's for sure, it's definitely cut and dry, and certain things like that, like it is actually difficult for people, you know, and a lot of people can't overcome those things. So it is challenging for
Yeah.
sure.
Do you think it's important to reflect social issues within your art?
Hmm. For sure. I mean, again, my art is related to self-discovery, essentially. That's, you
Mhm,
know, just me trying to figure out who I am, who I want to be, you know, and just trying to see myself in the most highest version of myself. I never see myself as like, you know, who gets super like political or social about my work, but I
mhm,
definitely do think it is important, and I do definitely commend those who artists who do implement those social issues within their artwork. Um, but yeah, for sure. What are your thoughts on that, actually?
Um, I think there's a space for it, right?
Yeah.
But when it gets to this, for example, if a person, a black person or brown person gets shot by the police, I don't want to see 1,000 different pictures or paintings of a black person getting shot. Like, we
Yeah.
know what the problem is. Let's try to
Hmm.
figure out ways to remedy the issue, you know,
Yeah.
make a piece about police reform, or make a
Yeah.
piece about two sides, the police and black people, or the police and
Absolutely.
people in poverty, having a conversation on how to uh
Hmm.
make the
Yes.
situation better. You know what I mean?
For
Like,
for sure. Yeah.
yeah.
And definitely agree. Especially with mental health as well. Um, I do think it's important in that aspect as well. A lot of the times you see a lot of crazy things like police officers shooting someone who had a mental illness, didn't
Mm-hmm.
know how to respond to them. So
Mm-hmm.
I definitely think the education needs to be there. How can we better educate ourselves so that these things don't happen, so that we can respond with an open heart and
Mm-hmm.
mindfulness to these people, and not see them as, oh, this crazy person, he was intoxicated, whatever the case is, and this person had a whole mental illness. Um, but for sure, those things are so important. We do speak about them. How can we better educate ourselves? What do we do
Mm-hmm.
now from this point? But yeah.
It's um and a lot of our media, is based in trauma. A lot of our movies is based in trauma. A lot of our music is based in
Mm,
trauma. A
yep.
lot of the stuff we consume on our phones is based in trauma. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like,
Mm,
we could watch a movie about a white person and their life is super mediocre, but it's like one of the
right.
best movies ever. Like, when
Right.
when do we get a chance to be mediocre?
When can we be put in that light for a
Yeah,
second?
you know
Because
what I
we're
mean?
always like on this dark side of everything, and it's like causing the issues over here. But when
Right.
can we finally be in that light of, yeah, we're humans just like you, and we can have those lives. It is
Exactly.
possible.
Hmm.
With I definitely feel that for sure.
Um, do you have any let me rephrase this. Has your style changed, excuse me, over time? I know you've been painting since for like 10 years. Like, has it has your outlook on your art changed over time?
Yeah. For sure. I feel like I'm a different person every day. Like I'm always learning something new about myself. And with that, and the thing that I love most, which is art, that also changes. There's certain
Mm-hmm.
things I notice too, like I'll go for a certain look and then people are like, wow, this is great. And then, I'll create something completely opposite of what I just did. And then people are like, ah. But it's just like flow, like we're human, we change every day, and with that I truly believe my art also changes, and that affects my art, for sure.
Hmm. That's deep. I remember when I first started photography, I had one like vision. Like, I wanted to be one of the best photographers. I wanted to be in vogue. I
Mhm.
wanted to do this. I wanted to do that. But I figured out that my main goal is to provide a platform or a voice for people who aren't always seen in a positive light,
Yeah.
or some people who aren't the skinniest, or the most beautiful, like regular human beings,
Yeah.
and just give them a voice.
Right. Exactly. For sure. And that's kind of similar to what I was also doing in my work. um I remember like painting, like I remember looking at a photo and I was like, okay, I'm gonna try to work on some realism and like paint this photo of this person, but this person was I guess what you would consider just a normal size human.
Hmm. Hmm.
And I'm like, nah, actually, I don't want to paint that. Like, to me, I think that's beautiful. I think painting outside of the norm or just whatever art form you're doing is just kind of stepping outside of the molds of what is normal.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, and painting something that's what people don't consider as normal, and seeing and putting them in that light so that people can also understand that that is also beautiful. There's so many things in the world that are beautiful that we kind of take for granted, and it's right there in front of us every day.
Absolutely. 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 Even just going outside and enjoying the sun. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
especially in this day and age, I remember riding the train a few years back, the metro, and
Hmm.
I got off at one stop, and it had been at least like maybe 200 to 300 people there, and every one of those people had their face down in their phone.
Yeah.
Everyone, like an ocean of people, face just in social media,
Yeah.
and
Just
I'm
looking at their phones, like,
yeah.
ignoring all the things that are happening around you. And, I feel like we all are like that at one point until we
Hmm.
realize what we're actually missing. Like you said, stepping outside and enjoying the sun, as simple as that, can like change everything.
Hmm.
For you. I know it is for me. It could be one of those days where I wake up and I feel like complete crap and I'm like, you know what? I don't want to do this right now, but I'm going to do it anyway because I know it's going to make me feel better. And just
Hmm.
like letting the sun kiss your skin and like feeling everything, feeling every detail of it is amazing.
So what got you started on your what you say, spiritual journey? Like, what was the straw that broke the camel's back? Like, I need to figure this shit out.
Well, it was a really interesting situation. Um, well, to me, I consider myself as an empath. I feel energy from
Hmm.
people before they even say anything to me. I'm like, whoa, lot going on here.
Hmm.
um, but from that point on, there was an instance with someone that I'm really close with where I knew something was wrong because I don't want to go too deep into it, but I just knew the energy was off.
Right.
And I'm like, wow, I'm feeling this really strong right now. Like, what is up? And, I had a conversation with this person and it was facts. Like, they were going through a tough time. And from that point, I'm like, I can no longer allow negativity into my space because I'm realizing how much it affects me
Mm.
in my day and the people around me. Um, and after that, I just went on this binge. I just felt like this pulling from the universe, whatever it is, from the great divine. Like, you need to be doing this work, like you don't feel all this energy for no reason. Like,
Mm.
to me, like feeling all those energy, I would kind of just like shrug it, like, wow, this would affect my day. But really feeling the energy now and you using that as like fuel to do my mission every day, to complete my artwork, to get through the day, because there were some
Mhm.
days where I would wake up and it was completely hard to just get out the bed. And I'm like, nah, I'm not going to let that control my life anymore. And um, just from that moment that I had with that close person kind of like opened a lot of things for me, like in
Mhm.
my mind. And I knew that I had to open myself up to get closer to my ancestors and my spirit guides because I knew that I had a mission and I wasn't feeling all these things for no reason. I'm just like, clearly y'all trying to tell me something.
Mm.
And I'm gonna listen. I'm gonna be more receptive. And when you're more receptive to the great divine and your spirit angels and all that, um, you have so much more resources to life. Like you are, you start to become this better version of yourself that you never thought would be possible.
Mm.
And I just kept following that trail of like, this is the work that I need to do, and I'm going to keep creating art. And that was always something in the back of my mind. Like, you have to keep creating, you have to keep creating. Don't ever limit yourself. As a painter, I was just like, wow, this is what I was meant to do, just paint. But then all these different things started introducing themselves to me: polymer clay,
Mm,
photography, like all these things. And, I was just like, I have to do them. It's just like, you should never limit yourself as a human. You're capable of so many things. Why just do one thing? And I just knew that whatever it was in art form, that I also needed to incorporate that with mental health, and,
yeah,
build a community of those that are like me, you know.
yeah.
Um, but yeah, that's where it all started.
I mean, I kind of went through something similar myself during, the pandemic. We're so used to this wake, wash, and work routine,
Mm,
and
yeah.
we give so much of ourselves to everything else besides ourselves. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
So it came to a point where I had to really sit back and think about, like, who am I and, like, what is my purpose?
Exactly.
Because I'm just out here distracted, you
Yeah.
know, and fortunate enough, nobody in my family or, you know, anyone close to me has been, like, really negatively affected by the pandemic. But I had the opportunity to, like, watch my son. Like, I just had a son, he's 2 now, but just, like, watch him grow,
Yeah.
and figure out the world and interact and learn how to talk. And, like,
Yeah.
he's really insightful, intelligent. Like, he knows his ABCs, he can count to 50. He's speaking
Wow. And he's
speaking
only two?
he's only 2, and he's
Oh my
speaking, like,
goodness.
complete sentences, well, learning how to speak complete
That's
sentences.
amazing.
So, just, if the pandemic didn't happen, I wouldn't have that opportunity to, like, really sit there in awe and watch him,
Hmm.
develop. And I think the pandemic made a lot of people have to look, made a lot of people look inwardly,
For
with
sure.
a lot of people out here quit their jobs because they don't want to sit out here and hustle for 12, $15 an hour, like,
Exactly.
like this was a blessing and a curse at the same time. But
Yeah.
um just figuring ourselves out and figuring out who we are and what our purpose is and what we want in life is important.
Yeah. For sure. I definitely agree. It's so important. And and like you said, that was kind of like a light for me too in my life as well. My brother had his first son. He's 4 now.
Mhm.
And I remember before he was born, I was like, I was this super depressive person, and I'm like, I cannot let this kid come into this world and like see me this way. I'm like, I have to be better. Like, I need
Right.
to be a better version of myself.
Mhm.
And when he was born, I was just like, he's everything. He's everything. And he's so curious about everything, and he wants to know what this means and
Mhm.
why is it like this? Like, what is, he's very aware,
Yeah.
for his age. And for sure, like, just having those reminders, just like a fresh reminder and like a fresh breath of air, he
Mhm.
was for me at that time. The pandemic for sure was just like a lot for everybody. I think
Mhm.
I definitely remember, like me right now, I'm an artist. I create, but I also have a full-time job
Right.
for a small digital marketing company. And that alone is just like, doing that and coming home and trying to get into the space of like, how do I create and how can I run my business and do all these things? The pandemic like helped me get into that space. I was
Mhm.
able to build my business from that. But yeah, the pandemic was a lot for everybody.
Um, is there, like, a specific environment you need in order to create?
Um, yeah, for sure.
And what's that?
uh,
What's the soundtrack? Like, what are you playing while you're creating?
it depends. Like, sometimes it has to be quiet. Like it has to
Mhm,
be silent because there's a lot going on. So I'm like, I need like a moment of silence to breathe, meditate, and create. And then there's times where I'm like, all right, let's throw on some James Blake,
mm,
let's throw on some Sade, let's throw on some like easy,
mhm,
smooth.
mhm,
Um, but definitely I have to be by myself, no distractions. Like I have to have the right lighting and everything kind of laid out, like my materials laid out. Um, whatever I'm going to be using at that time, and then like take a deep breath and get into, I get lost pretty much, like time flies when you're creating and you're just
mhm,
like into it and you're like, wow, it's what time is it? But
mhm.
yeah, that is my vibe. I have to have like it really depends on how I'm feeling.
I really relish at painters. My lady is a painter as well, and
Nice.
she would tell me stories about her being in such a zone or is in like state where she will paint for hours and
Mm-hmm.
forget to eat. Like
Yeah.
eating doesn't even come across your mind. Like you have to get
No.
this done. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and you're in the zone, so you're like, nah, like I can't let this feeling go. Like this is like the right vibe right now.
Hmm.
So I definitely feel that because there's been moments where I'm like, oh wow, I need to eat, and it's like 1 o'clock in the morning.
Hmm.
So yeah,
Is there is there ever a such thing as a finished piece?
there's no, absolutely not. Absolutely not. Cause like even now, like I have work on my walls and I look at them from time to time and I'm like, dang, you know what would look really good? Like what can I add to this? I don't ever
Hmm.
think, but there has to be a moment where you're like, all right, this is it. Cause then you can either destroy the painting or it can be really great. Um, I had a few of destroy and I had a few greats. So I don't think a painting is ever really finished. You just kind of have to know when to stop and be like, all right, I gotta
Hmm.
stop.
Hmm. I feel that. Um, whenever I edit a photo, I always have to like stop after a few hours and look at it with fresh eyes the next day,
Yes.
or
Mm-hmm.
I would never be done. Like I would just sit there and mess
Exactly.
it up the whole time.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. You got to know when to stop and then revisit it. Cause again, a painting could take months, days, whatever. And you don't realize it. But when you look at it like the next day or whatever, however many days it takes you, it's just like, wow, like I feel good about this new
Mm.
vibe. Like, all right, for sure.
I got one more question for you, and I like that. Ask my artists if they would like to play a little game, just to wrap it up, if
Okay.
that's okay.
Yeah,
Um,
sure. I'm down. Let
last
me, there we go.
mhm, last
Oops, sorry
question.
about that.
Mhm. What advice would you give a young Jessica first starting her art career? Something that you know now, but you didn't know then.
Hmm, that's a good one. um, I would probably say be kind to yourself, but also like don't let nobody tell you that your work is not valid.
Mm,
Like your work, your artwork is your artwork. Highly believe everybody's journey is different, and maybe that's what it is. Like your journey is going to be very different.
mm,
So don't ever let anyone tell you that your artwork is not valid. Um, that's like saying your feelings are not valid, and that's what I use my artwork as. It's just like this form of therapy to express how I'm feeling, and especially in the art world is a little tough. So you have
mm,
to hold your ground, stay true to who you are and what your purpose to create, what creating is for you, and just keep creating, never stop creating, and everything's gonna be great. You're gonna be good.
I love that. I love that. All right, the game's called This or That. I don't know if you ever heard of that game before, but I'm going to ask you a question and you can only choose one answer, and the whole world depends on these answers.
Okay.
All
Hold
right.
on. It's getting a little dark in here. Can I turn the light on real
Oh,
quick?
do your thing. Do your thing.
All right, hold on.
Mhm.
There we go. I'm like, it's getting a little dark. Okay, we good.
Perfect. Okay. First question: pancakes or waffles?
That's hard. I'm gonna go with waffles
Mm,
because they're, you got options with waffles. So like you can make them crunchy, or if you can, get them real soft, and then you can put like all sorts of toppings on it. So I'm gonna go with the waffles.
we're not talking Eggos or anything, right?
Nah, no, 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 no. It's got.
The
I'm mad
Belgian
you threw in
joints,
the
right?
Eggos though. Yes, Belgian. Throw some
Yeah,
like blueberries up in there. Like, yeah.
yeah. I love waffles too, especially when they're nice and soft, you know.
Yes.
Second question: coffee or tea?
Tea all the way.
Mm,
I'm not a coffee person. Tea is like herbs. Give me herbs. I'm good.
mm, mm. I could feel that, but I don't know.
Yeah.
I love coffee. I have to start my day off with coffee every day,
Every day.
every day. Um,
Nice.
kittens or puppies?
Puppies. I've never been a cat person, and also I'm probably allergic. I'm pretty sure I'm allergic. So I'm gonna go with the puppies.
Mm. Um, watercolors or polymer?
mm, damn, that's hard. I I'm gonna go. That's hard. I'm gonna go with watercolor. You know
Mm,
why? Because watercolor was actually one of the first mediums I picked up when I first started painting. It was watercolor.
that's love. That's love. Um, you moved down south, right?
Tampa. I'm currently in
Okay.
Tampa. Yeah.
So Brooklyn or Tampa?
Ooh,
There's a lot of
you,
New Yorkers in Florida
you.
right now.
Oh yeah. There's so many people from everywhere in Florida right now. Um, I'm gonna go with Brooklyn because if it wasn't for Brooklyn, I would not be in Tampa. Because that's where Jessica Mata was born, like
Mm.
birthed, where her creativity was born, and then I'm here. So there we go.
All right. Last one. Let me think about this. I want to make it good.
Okay.
Um, Dang, it was right on the tip of my tongue. Um, therapy or spa day?
Therapy or spa day?
Both is a form of like self love. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Again, everybody's form of healing is different. I'm gonna go with spa day because I tried therapy and therapy was just not my thing.
mm,
But spa day, I knew that after coming out of the spa, I was feeling real nice. And I know that that's what I love. I love self-care. I love like doing things like that. Whether it's like getting my nails done,
mhm, mhm.
taking a walk, getting a massage. Like for me, that's self-love.
Perfect. So, how can people get in contact with the business or try to find your art? Like, how do you have any like social links people can look up?
Yeah. For my earrings for Perfectly Dismantled, they can follow me at on my Instagram at perfectlydismantled.com, or they can go directly to my website, which is where everything is perfectlydismantled.com. Bam, find me.
Perfect. Once again, I really appreciate you taking the time out to speak with me and share a few gems and really highlight mental health, which is important for our generation and future generations to come.
For sure. Thank you so much for having me. It was a pleasure being here, especially on the month of depression and mental health awareness. I was happy to be here.
Perfect. So, once everything is edited, I'll just reach out and let you know when the episode airs.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I appreciate you.
Perfect. Have a good one.
All right, you too. Bye.
Peace.